You obviously are now making suspension for different vehicles. So like, what's the process of a new vehicle? You're like, hey, this would be a good vehicle to start making suspension for. Do you get that vehicle in and just test some things, or do you like get a competitor and kind of see what they do, or like how do you develop the suspension for like a new chassis that you don't have a suspension piece for yet?
If it's a vehicle that we could get our hands on, we definitely do it, especially if it's a vehicle where we're not going to just create like a an entry level coilover kit,
Yeah.
like a just a regular 441 that's you know, maybe just going to be used for road going cars or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to dive deep and say like when the A90 Supra, came out, like
Mm-hmm.
we felt like we needed to get our hands on it as soon as possible
Yeah.
because we knew this is going to be a chassis that's going to be popular in motorsports. So I try to get my hands on chassis as much as I can. We have a dedicated like bay at Field Suspension with a lift to be able to, take the car and measure
Mm-hmm.
everything out. And
Yeah.
luckily we have so many weird prototype shocks laying around that we could like Frankenstein a pre-production prototype kit. We have like, simple machines like
Mm-hmm.
manual lathe, manual mill to
Yeah.
make things happen, the 3D printer to accelerate the, pre-production
Right.
process. And then we got awesome partners here in the US. Some of the stuff is machined here and also in Taiwan. So we
Yeah.
could send CAD drawings of stuff and get it made. But to answer your other part, like the main question is there's, I could actually take a vehicle if I have dimensions from, uh, we have some partners that we can get dimensions from for vehicles like knuckle dimensions and stuff like that. But then
Mm-hmm.
I basically need to collect some valuable pieces of information like
Yeah.
the weight of the car, the motion ratio
Mm-hmm.
of the suspension, the weight distribution, an estimate of the unsprung weight, which is it doesn't deviate too much, but you'd be
Yeah.
surprised.
Okay.
And then I need to shoot for a certain natural frequency, and that's just a unit of measure to measure firmness. So, like every
Yeah.
discipline of driving requires a different firmness, right? Like road
Mm-hmm.
racing, if you're on slicks, like you need to have a very high natural frequency, like 3 hertz or above.
Okay.
So, there's I could just collect information, and it's a lot of it is mathematical. You could get pretty far, but
Wow.
then you also need that experience you need to tap into
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes you can calculate something out that's you're going to be great on paper, but it
Right.
doesn't always work out. And having the experience of working with a lot of cars with different suspension designs, like a
Yeah, that's what I was
McPherson
gonna
strut
ask. Is
versus
like, do you like do you have like formulas for each different type of suspension design? I guess, or like, how do you? Is it
yeah,
just experience? You know.
we do, and there is some proprietary formulas that I created that
Nice.
allow me to because it's not just me, like we scaled up a little bit, right? So I have
Yeah.
employees that
Mm-hmm.
I have to train up, and we can't have everything be choked down uh because of it having to funnel through me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's some proprietary formulas that I created,
Wow.
basically my decision making process that I make in my own head, or like quick, algebra that I use. I
Mm-hmm.
just basically, jotted that down and made it available to a few people in our organization at Feel.
Nice.
So that accelerates the ability to even serve existing customers. If they
Yeah.
call in and they're like, "Hey, man, I've been road racing for a couple of years, but I'm going to a full Hoosier slick now, and I've added some aero in the car. Like, we need to what can you guys do? I want
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
send in my suspension for a rebuild." So then you go, yeah, we're gonna step up in spring rate by
Mm-hmm.
this much, and we could apply this valving chart. We have like hundreds of valving charts, but my guys can make that decision based off of some of the math that I shared with them of how to get to that point.
Nice.
So
That's cool.